Standing on the icy top of this, the grandest of all the fire mountains of the Sierra, we can hardly fail to look forward to its next eruption. Gardens, vineyards, homes have been planted confidently on the flanks of the volcano, which, after remaining steadfast for ages, have suddenly blazed into violent action and poured forth overwhelming floods of fire. It is known that more than 1,000 years of cool calm have intervened between the violent eruptions, like gigantic geysers spouting molten rock instead of water. Volcanoes work and rest, and we have no means of knowing whether they are dead when still or only sleeping. Along the western base of the range, a telling series of sedimentary rocks containing the early history of the Sierra are now being studied, but leaving for the present their first chapters, we see that only a very short geological time ago, just before the coming on of that winter of winters called the glacial period, a vast deluge of molten rocks poured from many a chasm and crater on the flanks and summits of the range, filling lake basins and river channels and obliterating nearly every existing feature on the northern portion. At length these all-destroying floods ceased to flow, but while the great volcanic cones built up along the axis still burned and smoked, the whole Sierra passed under the domain of ice and snow. Then over the bald, featureless, fire-blackened mountains, glaciers began to crawl, covering them with the summit to the sea with a mantle of ice. And then, with lava and granites beneath their crystal folds, wasting and building until the fullness of time, the Sierra was born again, brought to light nearly as we behold it today, with glaciers and snow-crushed pines on the top of the range, wheat fields and orange groves at the foot of it. This change from icy darkness and death to life and beauty was slow as we count time, and is still going on north and south over all the world wherever glaciers exist, whether in the form of the distinct rivers, as in Switzerland, Norway, the mountains of Asia, and the Pacific coast, or as in continuous mantling folds, as in portions of Alaska, Greenland, Franz Josef Land, Nova Zembla, Spitsbergen, and the lands about the South Pole, but in no country, as far as I know, may these majestic changes be studied to better advantage than the plains and mountains of California. Towards the close of the glacial period, when the snow clouds became less fertile and the melting waste of sunshine became greater, the lower folds of ice sheet in California, discharging fleets of icebergs into the sea, began to swallow and recede from the lowlands, and then slowly move up the flanks of the Sierra in compliance with the changes of climate. The great mantle the mountains broke into a series of glaciers, more or less distinct and river-like, with many tributaries, and then these again were melted and divided into smaller glaciers, until now only a few of the smallest residual topmost branches of the grand system exist on the cool slopes of the summit peaks. Plants and animals biding their time closely followed the retiring ice, bestowing quick and joyous animation on the new-born landscapes. Pine trees marched up on the sun-warmed moraines in long, hopeful files, talking the ground and establishing themselves as soon as it was ready for them. Brown spiked sedges fringed with the shores of the newborn lakes. Young rivers roared in abandoned channels of the glaciers. Flowers bloomed around the feet of the great burnished domes, while with great fertility, mellow beds of soil settling and warming offered food to multitudes of nature's wanting children, great and small, animals as well as plants, mice, squirrels, marmots, deers, bears, elephants, etc. The ground burst into bloom with a magical rapidity, and the young forests into birdsong. Life in every form, warming and sweetening and glowing richer as the years passed by over the mighty Sierra, so lately suggestive of death and consummate desolation only. It is hard without long and loving study to realize the magnitude of the work done on the mountains during the last glacial period by glaciers, which are only streams of closely compacted snow crystals. Carefully study of the phenomena presented goes to show that the pre-glacial period of the range was comparatively simple. One vast wave of stone in which 1,000 mountains, domes, canyons, ridges, etc. lay concealed. And in the development of these natures chose for a tool not the earthquake or lightning to rend and split asunder, not the stormy torrent or eroding rain, but the tender snow flowers noiselessly following through unnumbered centuries, the offspring of the sun and sea, laboring harmoniously in united strength. They crushed and ground and wore away the rocks in the march, making vast beds of soil, and at the same time developed and fashioned the landscapes into a delightful variety of hill and dale and lordly mountain that mortals call beauty. Perhaps more than a mile in average depth has the range been thus degraded during the last glacial period, a quantity of mechanical work almost inconceivably great, and our admiration must be excited again and again as we toil and study and learn that their vast job of rock work, so far reaching in its influence, was done by agents so fragile and small as are these flowers of the mountain clouds. Strong only by force of numbers, they carried away entire mountains, particle by particle, block by block, and cast them into the sea. Sculptured, fashioned, modeled all the range, and developed its predestined beauty. All these new Sierra landscapes were evidently predestined for its physical features of the rock, on which the features of the scenery depend, was acquired while they lay at least a mile deep below the pre-glacial surface. And it was while these features were talking in the depths of the range, the particles of the rocks marching to their appointed places in the dark with reference to the killing beauty, that the particles of icy vapor in the sky marching to the same music assembled to bring them to the light. Then, after their grand task was done, these bands of snowflowers, these mighty glaciers, were melted and removed as is of no more importance than dew destined to last but an hour. Few, however, of nature's agents have left moments so noble and enduring as they. The great granite domes a mile high, so the canyons as deep, the more noble peaks, the Yosemite valleys, these, and indeed nearly all other features of the Sierra scenery as glacier monuments. Contemplating the works of these flowers of the sky, one may easily fancy them endowed with life. Messengers sent down to work in the mountains' mines on errands of divine love. Silently flying through the darkened air, swirling, glinting to their appointed place, they seem to have taken counsel together, saying, "Come, We are feeble, let us help one another. We are many, and together we will be strong. Marching in close, deep ranks, let us roll away the stones from these mountain sculptures and set up the landscapes free. Let us uncover these cloistering domes. Here let us carve a lake basin. There, a Yosemite Valley. Here, a channel for a river with fluted steps, and browse for the plunge of songful cataracts. Yonder let us spread broad sheets of soil, that man and beast may be fed. And here pile trains of boulders for pines and giant sequoias. Here make ground for a meadow, there for a garden and grove, making it smooth and fine for small daisies and violets, and beds of healthy bryathus, spicing it well with crystals, garnet, feldspar, and zircon. Thus and so on it has oftentimes seemed to me, sang and planned and labored, the hardy snowflower crusaders, and nothing that I can write can possibly exaggerate the grandeur and beauty of their work. Like morning mist, they have vanished in the sunshine, all save the few small companies that still linger on the coolest mountainsides, and as residual glaciers are still busily at work completing the last of the lake basins, the last soil beds of soil, and the sculpture of some of the highest peaks